Get your head around this and it will help you unlock all those chords that you need to play the songs that you love. Anyway guys, there's a lot to pack into this lesson, and as you can see, I've already got started. If you've already seen some of my other videos before, then you may already know what the L7 grid is, but in case you haven't, I'm going to go over it again. But I'm going to use this to show you a second grid. If you remember, I told you there were 4 grids, and this is the second grid that I'm about to show you. To give it context, I need to show you this one first. Now this is a continuation of the last lesson where I talked about where the minor key comes from, and we're going to roll that into this one as well. As you can see, this is the major L7 grid. Now what do we mean by the L7 grid? What we should always be trying to do is turn anything that is music theory and applying it to the guitar. We know in the major key that we have 3 major chords and 3 minor chords, and those can be broken down to this pattern here, this L7 grid. The red bracket that you can see, that is the major chords, and let me just demonstrate that on the guitar. We get 1, 4 and 5 there. Now that is the 7 part of the L7. So chord 1, because it is on the E string, means that this is going to be an E shape, and that would mean I would play an E shaped major chord like this. When we jump down onto the 4 on that L7 grid, you can see that we're on the A string. That would mean we will play an A major shape. We can also then use this A major shape and go up that grid to the chord 5. And there is chord 5. So if we put those 3 together, we get those 3 positions there can become blues, rock and roll, punk. There's lots of use cases of this, and it's sometimes called the 3-chord trick. But if we want more colour, what we need to do is bring some minors in here for contrast. Majors are happy, minors are sad, so that is the contrast that we're looking for. Well, let's take that and create that contrast. So if we go through the blue grid now, we go here at the 7th fret, we're on the B. You can see we're on the B there. Then we get to the C sharp here, or the D flat. It says D flat on that grid there because I'm thinking of that line of letters as being tonic notes for 12 different keys. But in the key of A, it's going to be called C sharp. Let's apply the chord to it, which gives us a C sharp minor. So there we go, we've got the C sharp minor. That takes care of chord 3. We jump over to chord 6, which is on the A string, which means it's an A shape, but we have to modify the shape to be a minor, and that gives us an F sharp minor. And in the end, what we get there are the 6 chords that we need for the key of A major. I've left out the diminished because we don't need those. We can apply those later if we're playing jazz or classical music, because frankly it doesn't really come up that often in popular music. So tying into the lesson that I talked about where the minor comes from and how we derive it from the major, we can do a similar thing with the L7 grid. The same chords exist for each key. We get the same chords for both the major and the minor key. They are just in a different order, and if you haven't seen that video, watch the video in the end card, and you may have to come back to this video again, but that's okay. So what I've done here is I've changed it so that the chords are the same, the chords haven't changed, but the Roman numeral chord name for the chords has changed, and that's really important that we use these Roman numerals. We can actually think of them as Nashville chord numbering system as well. So what we have to do is we have to flip it around. We have to think of this as being chords 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the minor key. Let me just play them in order. We've got chord 1. Chord 2 would be a diminished chord, but we're not playing it. Chord 3 is here. Chord 4 is here. Chord 5 is here. Chord flat 6 is here, and that is a major chord. Up a whole step, we get the flat 7 major. Up a step, we get back to chord 1. So you can see that this becomes interchangeable with the major and the minor key. They are just taking on different names because they are in different positions in the order that they come in. When we think in major, we get a major chord 1, and as you can see in this, we get a minor chord 1. Now what I've done is I've taken that minor part of that L7 grid and I've thrown it an octave lower. Remember, we had F sharp minor here, we had C sharp minor here, and then we had B minor here. And what we've done is we've gone to the 2nd fret, we've just moved it all down. So we need to play a minor shape down here. Because this is the E string, then this F sharp here is going to be the root note of that chord, but we're going to play an E minor shape for that chord. So we get an F sharp minor, which is what we had up here. Let's compare the two. What we can also do is we can move that across. That's minor. This is the B minor again. Instead of this voicing, we have this voicing. And then I can move this up to C sharp minor here. And then I can play it here as well. There's 2 places to be able to play those minor chords. And this is super convenient because what we can do is we can move in between these to access all the voices that the guitar has to offer, because the way I think of the guitar as being a choir, it has 4 different voices, and what you need to be able to do is to be able to exploit those voices to communicate what it is that you're trying to say musically. So if I get rid of this minor bracket that I had, then we're just left with this new grid, and I said there are 4 grids, and this is the 2nd grid that you need to learn. This is what I call the 7-7 grid, because as you can see, it looks like a 7 and a 7 standing on top of each other. This means we have a different way of looking at the minor. So we can just see the 7-7 grid as being the default for the minor if you wanted to think of it that way. Although in a moment I'm going to show you how these join up. So we've got this chord 1, chord 4, chord 5. That means we can find the 1, 4, 5 for a minor key very, very easily. But also to boot, by adding that extra 7, which is in the red bracket, we can find the major chords of that minor key. So here are those major chords. This becomes a really useful thing when we want to find out where chord 5 is, maybe turn that into a major, because that's what we would do if we were trying to do something in harmonic minor. Listen to this. I just substituted the chord 5 in that minor there for a major 5 instead, and that is really cool to be able to just figure that out on the guitar really easily. So that's a golden nugget. We have minor 1, minor 4, minor 5. We get the minor 3, which is a flat 3, the minor 6, which is a flat 6 chord, and the minor 7, which is a flat 7 chord. The reason we want to put flats in the names of these Roman numeral chords is because we are retaining the scale degrees of the minor scale, because that flat 3 that it says major on there, that is the flattened third of that scale. And that flat 6 is the flat 6th of the scale, the formula for a minor scale, and that's the flat 7. So that's why we use this. And of course we can always flip this around. So if we're thinking in major and we're playing mostly in chords 1, 4 and 5, and we want to know where chords 2, 3 and 6 are, then we know they're going to be here in a lower voiced position, because that suits the song. Knowing all this means that you can find these common chord progressions. Let's look at something like a 6, 2, 5, 1. All I need to do is follow the grid. Look, 6, chord 2 is just underneath it, chord 5 is up here, and then chord 1 is here. You may recognize that progression because that's Ave Maria and Island in the Sun by Weezer. So it's useful to remember your chords as Roman numerals as well as understanding them from their alphabet letter chord names. Now, because I can move that L-shaped bracket down to become a 7-shaped bracket from here to here, that means I can expand my chord vocabulary all the way pretty much up the neck. Let's have a go through it. Here is chord 6. Here's chord 2. Here's chord 3. Here's chord 1. Here's chord 4. Here's chord 5. Here's chord 2. Here's chord 3. Here's chord 6. So knowing these L7 and 7/7 patterns is only half the battle. To make sure you really get it, you have to understand where the minor key comes from. And you can learn that by watching this video here.